Hello everyone and welcome to my top 5 of 2025 with our guest host, Jaina. And we're gonna get a little fancy with our drink today. Zero sugar juice, because I don't drink alcohol. Cheers! Let's talk about my top 5 for 2025. Okay, so I'm gonna do this a little unconventional. Unlike other people's lists of top 5, I'm gonna do based on genre so that you get more of some of my favorite reads for the year and not just all in the fantasy category. So let's start off with historical fiction, and the winner of historical fiction for my top 5 is The Stolen Queen by Fiona Davis. And in this, an Egyptian artifact gets stolen from the Met Gala. There's a mystery involving who stole it and where it went. And that's all in the present timeline. And then we also have a past timeline where it's actually going into the archaeological dig for this artifact and how she and her husband discovered it. And I just really enjoy archaeology and watching Expedition Unknown and shows like that to look at history and the different artifacts from history. So that made this book really interesting to me, and also there's a mystery thriller aspect with this artifact being stolen. All around a good book. And the winner for mystery thriller of my top 5 is The First Day of Spring by Nancy Tucker. And this is actually sort of more of a lit fic thriller. So this follows a girl named Chrissy, and it also has a past-present timeline where you figure out things as you go. And Chrissy, at 8 years old, she was accused of killing a boy. So you get the past when she's younger, and then the present when she's an adult, and how you don't know how things happened until you get this past story that then meets up with the present adult Chrissy. And I couldn't stop reading this. It was engrossing to me, and this was during the spring summertime that I read this, and I actually sat outside so long that I got a sunburn because I couldn't stop reading. And I put that in my Goodreads review too, that I enjoyed this so much that I spent too much time outside. And this was actually a surprise read because I was trying to do my local library's bingo that they had set up that was to read something that occurred during the spring. And so I actually picked this up as a library book first and then bought my own copy because I enjoyed it so much and wanted to eventually reread it, because I've even kind of forgotten the twists and turns of it. But it was a really interesting mystery thriller, almost like character-centric mystery. And if you notice, our host has left, or she saw the award she wanted to see, and now she's done attending the awards ceremony. And my sci-fi pick for my top 5 is Invisible Things by Matt Johnson. So this is a space exploration book that this spaceship crew goes on another mission to find a previous crew who disappeared without a trace, and they have been commissioned to go and continue this mission, continue the original mission, and also find out what may have happened to this crew, if this crew maybe crash landed and maybe they can go rescue them. So that's the basic premise of this book. I think the sci-fi aspect of this was so different and so like, let me make sure it's not already in the synopsis so I don't spoil you. Okay, so it's already in the synopsis, but one of the people that gets sent on this mission believes that his wife had been stolen by aliens, so they think there may be extraterrestrials involved with why the crew went missing. I recommend you pick this up if you want some very unique, thought-provoking sci-fi. That's why this is on my top 5 for sci-fi. My top 5 pick of fantasy is Jade City by Fonda Lee, and I don't own my physical copy anymore. I had the broken binding editions and I sold them to a happy new home. I plan to not continue the series after starting the second book. It just felt very different from the first, but that didn't deter me from picking Jade City as a top 5 because I really did enjoy that world and the uniqueness of the magic system. Our hostess is back for the fantasy award. You're gonna jump, Jaina? Okay, go in the curtains. Go backstage. You gotta hide your tail. Okay. So that's why I still picked Jade City. I didn't think that any other book that I read really topped where this transported me and just loving everything about the world. Unfortunately, I won't be continuing the series, but I do have a love for this first book, and I was ready to buy green jewelry just to pretend like I had Jade. And I'm assuming most of you are familiar with what Jade City is about, but for the people who don't read fantasy or are around fantasy booktube, basically like a mafia style drug cartel mix of a magic, like it's an urban fantasy, so it's a magic world set in kind of a normal city society. One family that runs most of this jade trade, which is the jewel that gives you this magical power, and they kind of enforce laws based on jade, especially in this entire world. Jade is one of the most important elements, so that's why I say it's a mix of mafia and drug cartel, because there's a little bit of black market things that happen. But I really enjoyed this first book, so that's why I still put it in my top 5. Alright, are you ready for my 5th and final genre and book? So, for a nonfiction category, I don't read a ton of nonfiction, but for the few that I read, I did want to pick a top 5. So this one is going to be lesser known unless you have a Book of the Month subscription, because they picked it. It's The Man No One Believed by Joshua Sharp, and it's the untold story of the Georgia church murders. So this is about a murder that happened in the 80s. A man got wrongfully convicted of the murder, so he was innocent, and they still put him in jail until more investigation was done later in the 2020s, and he eventually was exonerated, and a different man now is under trial for this murder, so it's still not complete in the process of finding the actual killer of this couple. So the couple was murdered in their church. It was a small town, well-known couple, and it was a pastor and his wife that were both killed. And this was also the first true crime that I've read, so it's not only just nonfiction, but it's also in the true crime genre. I was lucky enough to actually meet the author and also both the son of the pastor who was killed and the wrongfully convicted man who is now exonerated and out of prison. Trying to block my name because I stamped it. So I have my book signed by all three of them, which is pretty cool. So it's definitely got a special place on my shelf. A local library actually put it on to have this author come and do Q&As. Actually, that adds to why this also made my top 5. When talking to him, because I told him this was the first ever true crime I read, and he said in writing it, he tried not to sensationalize the crime like so many other true crime writers do, where they try to make it this big epic thriller action movie type of book, but he tried to like stick to the facts of what happened and like almost like journalist style tell you things but also make it interesting. So just know that going in that this isn't going to read like every other true crime book that you've read. Take it as more of a nonfiction, but it's about a crime and a conviction of a innocent man. And also just know that there are racist remarks in this that you will read. So if you don't want to read about actual racist people, maybe don't pick this one up, but it's also a good read for demonstrating actual racism in the world. Good jump. She has joined us for the end of the top 5. So that is my top 5 of 5 different genres that I read in 2025. Let me know if any of those sound interesting to you, or if you've read any of those this year or in previous years. And as always, as long as you click that subscribe button, I can see everyone in the next video.
But if I lay down and I play dead and I stay dead, maybe you'll get